The second part of the axial skeleton, we talked about the axial skeleton is skull, vertebral column, and thoracic cage. The thoracic cage will be the ribs and the sternum. We finished the skull already in the previous part, and then we will have the vertebral column. The vertebral column consists of 24 vertebra and 1 sternum and 1 coccyx. The 1 coccyx here, which is at the end here, this is in animals, this will be the beginning of the tail right here. So you have 24 vertebra, 7 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are going to be the first 7 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are the cervical, and then the 12 all the way to this one. How did I know? Because this is the last rib will be here. So this is will be the T12, and then you have the 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are there should be another one here, but these are the 5 lumbar vertebra down here, and you have 1 sacral and the 1 coccygeal. So the numbers, we have 7 cervical, we have 12 thoracic, we have 5 lumbar, 1 sacral, and 1 coccyx. So the 24 plus sacrum and coccyx. Okay, so if you look at each one of these vertebra, if you look at this one here and the other vertebra, we're going to talk about the general structure of the vertebra, and then we'll go to the details. The general structure is, this part here is called the body, this part here is called the pedicle, and this part here will be the lamina. And so body, pedicle, this part here is the pedicle, and this part here is the lamina. And then you have 1, 2, 4. 1 spinous process, 2 transverse processes, and 4 articulation processes and facets. Those 2 here are the superior articular facets on top of the superior articular processes. And if you look down here, you see the 2 inferior articular facets on the inferior articular processes. So 1, 2, 4. Now, how to differentiate between different types of vertebra? You will need to tell if this vertebra belong to the thoracic, does it belong to the cervical or thoracic or lumbar. Of course, sacral and coccyx is totally different, but you need to tell which part of the vertebral column that does this vertebra belong to. First of all, the cervical one, like this. This is the cervical one. If you compare, this is called the vertebral foramen. And this is the foramen inside the vertebra. And actually, if you put different vertebral foramina on top of each other, that will make the vertebral column. This is where the spinal cord will go through. But if you compare the foramen to the body, you will see that the foramen is as big or maybe larger than the body. And this is only valid in the cervical region. And also, if you look at the body, you will see some concavity here. And the most important of all is, if you look here, this is the transverse process, and this is the transverse process. You see this transverse foramen, transverse foramina. Once you see the transverse foramina, you know that this vertebra belong to the cervical region. And you need to know, generally speaking, if this belong to the cervical, lumbar, thoracic, sacral, or coccygeal. But except C1 and C2, you need to know them specifically. So cervical 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, they are very close to each other, but C1 and 2 is totally different. So generally speaking, this is cervical. How did you know it's cervical? Because the foramen is as large as the body, or maybe larger, and you have this transverse foramina. The body is there's a concavity on the body, and also you will see something like this, which is the bifid spinous process. The spinous process will be bifid, like separated, like you're cutting this part with a knife or something. So when you see this bifid spinous process, this will tell you that this is a cervical process. But out of those, the most important and the definitive, and once you see it, you're done, is this transverse foramen, which the transverse foramen is for the passage of the vertebral blood vessels, artery and vein. So they go through this to be protected, and once you see them, it's only in the cervical region. Now, C1 and C2. How to know C1 and C2? If you look at this, this is C1. How do you know? Because there is no body here. All other vertebra from C2 all the way to the end will have a body here. Body is like this. but you don't see body here. And also there is no spinous process. But how did I know first that this is cervical? Because of the transverse process down here. Transverse foramen in the transverse process. Once you see the transverse process, you say this is cervical. See what? See 1, 2, or anything else? This is 1. It doesn't have a body. Embryologically, there used to be a body here. It migrated to C2. And the other name for C1 is atlas. And you don't see a spinous process. No body, no spinous process, and this is cervical. It has to be C1. If you compare this to C2, which is this one here, how did I know that it's cervical? Again, same thing. If you look here, you will see the transverse foramen here. This is the transverse foramen. So you know this is transverse foramen. You know that this is cervical. It's CU2. How did you know? Because of this. This is called the dens. So here is the body, and here is an extra part above the body, which is called the dens of axis. The other name for C2 is axis. So once you see the dens and you know this is cervical, you're done. This is C2. Other ones like this is just the typical one. It's a typical cervical. What do you mean typical? I mean anything from 3 to 7. The second part will be the thoracic. We have 12 thoracic. We have 7 cervical, as we said, and then we have 12 thoracic. This one, a thoracic, how did you know? Comparing the foramen to the body is about double or maybe a little bit more of the size of the foramen. That's number 1. Number 2, if you look at the spinous process, you see it cylinder and long. It's longer and cylinder. And if you look at the transverse process, you see it short and bulky. So the spinous process is long and cylinder, and like this one too. Spinous process is long and cylinder, and the transverse process is short and bulky. And the other thing is you will have this demi-facet here. This is for articulation with the head of the reps. And this other facet here on the transverse process, that's called the transverse costal facet. Those two will articulate. This will articulate with the head on the body. This is on the body of the vertebra, will articulate with the head of the reps. And this will articulate with the tubercle of the reps. So 2 articulation parts. This is the demi-facet and costal facet, and this is only in the thoracic region. And also, if you look at the foramen, you will see it kind of rounded, and the body looks like heart-shaped. If you look at this looks like heart-shaped. So 2 or 3 times as large as the foramen. The foramen is round, the body is heart-shaped, the spinous process is long and cylinder, the transverse process is short and bulky, and beside the demi-facet and the transverse costal facet, this is thoracic. The next one will be the lumbar, and how to know this is lumbar. You will see that this is oval-shaped body, and compare the foramen to the body. You will notice that the body is like 4 or 5 times as large, and the body is oval-shaped, and the foramen is triangular shaped. This is number 1. Number 2, you see this is a spinous process. It's short and bulky, and the transverse process at this time will be cylinder. So it's the opposite of what we talked about in the thoracic region. In the thoracic region, this wall was cylinder and tall, and the transverse process was short and bulky. This is the opposite. The spinous process is short and bulky, and the transverse process, see, it is cylinder. And of course, you will not see the demi-facets or costal facets because the ribs only articulate with at the thoracic region. So this is the lumbar, typical, and it's actually bulky and huge. The next part will be the sacrum. This is the sacrum. These are the sacral foramina right here. This is the median crest. These are the lateral crest. This part here is called the ala. This part here is called the ala. This is the body, ali, or the wings here. This is the coccyx. This is the auricular surface. This is what's going to articulate with the pelvic bone. The pelvic bone should be like here to articulate with the auricular facets here. If you look at this part here, this is the entrance here, and this is the hiatus, should be the exit. Hiatus and exit of the vertebral canal or the sacral canal at this time. You're going to call it the sacral canal. And this is the superior articular facet or processes. So that's it for the for the vertebral column. And you just look, if you look at this, you see the whole vertebral column, and you see that the cervical region will have this curvature, which is from the front, it's concave. And then you look at the thoracic, you see another curvature that's convex from here. And the third one will be this one here, at the lumbar region. So these are the curvatures of the whole vertebral column. And actually, there is one more thing here that we don't talk about, which is this is called the intervertebral notch. If you put the two together, like these two vertebrae together, this will make the intervertebral foramen. This is a complete foramen, and this is for the passage or for the exiting of this, which is the spinal nerve. This is how it exits the spine, how it exits the vertebral column is through the intervertebral foramina. If you look here, this is the body, and this is the intervertebral disc. This is a disc that can be herniated and move away from the bodies. And that's it for the vertebral column.